Because so many asked, we make now a little series about Amazon advertising, and today is video number 2. In today's video, I'll show you how to set up your advertising structurally in the Amazon advertising console so you can anticipate it in the future and maintaining an overview. Importantly, in the current video, it's not yet about the bids, about the strategy, but really just about the structure. You are in your Amazon Merch account, go to advertise, and then you have Amazon ads. When you click on it, it becomes relatively similar. Look here to see what is important for you. In the top left, the marketplaces you have available, they might look completely different for you. The important thing is that you have at least one available. In my example, I am using the United States, but the same scheme applies to all marketplaces, so it doesn't matter how you do it. You can use the video here one-to-one like this. On the left, you now have a menu where you can select individual items. There are main points and sub-points under them. It can be overwhelming when you first go in, but I can reassure you, you need at the beginning first, not at all. It's perfectly sufficient if you work here with sponsored ads and go to the campaign manager. Then it looks like this. Normally you have the statistics here, then you can filter the individual points that are important to you. Then you also have the individual campaign statistics here. As I said, we'll look at that differently later. Today it's just about the structure. To create the structure, you first need an overview of what this structure even looks like. I've quickly summarized for you how it begins at the very top. It's optional, but we do it. Is the portfolio, the campaign. In the campaign, there are individual ad groups that can consist of one or many products. In the ad group is where you set your bids and everything at the end for the individual products. The campaign is overarching, where you set your strategy. For example, if you want to bid high or low, if you want a fixed bid or adjust according to placement. But that's something for another video. Here it's first only about understanding the structure. Many, for example, myself included at the beginning, don't even know that there is another ad group in the campaign and think it's somehow the same. Then everything, the campaign and the ad group, have the same name. I mean, you can do that, but you shouldn't. But yes, that is the strategy. And as just demonstrated, we start right at the top with the portfolio. Portfolio, you can see some example portfolios here. I already made this for another video, but here you can group your niches. For example, you can have one campaign automatically and one campaign manually. So automatically Amazon will display your ads on different products, different keywords. Amazon thinks this is good, it could rank for these keywords. In a manual campaign, you can individually determine which keywords you want, or for example, which products. I would generally always recommend creating a portfolio. So we call it, for example, the test portfolio just for now. For the video here and what you see here, I have now entered directly into the portfolio. I will go back again. You now see the test portfolio we have created. Of course, there is nothing in it yet. What you see here in the structure before, for example, when something is in May, then create the portfolio so that it appears at the top when you filter for it. Then, for example, Father's Day comes next for June in position 2, Halloween later, position 3. I think you understand the concept. I mean, so that you don't forget or overlook anything when you have many portfolios, or that you have a simple overview. Otherwise, now it's about the test portfolio. We click on it, and as already described, there is nothing here at first. Here we have to create the first campaign, which you can do with this simple button click. and then you're already here. In my console, it's quite different. There are sponsored products and sponsored brands. You usually always have sponsored products. That's the standard advertisement. And you can ignore the error message here. Now it's only about what you need to configure. And you already see ad groups here, and you see here when I go further down, scroll, the campaign settings. Not really well resolved by Amazon because it's primarily about the campaign, so these settings should actually be at the top and the ad groups below, but it doesn't matter. So what I always do is I start at the bottom. For example, I always do an automatic and a manual campaign when I want to scale up the niche a bit more. In the beginning, just an automatic campaign or a manual one can be enough depending on what the niche is. For example, I name the campaign here. This is my test campaign. It is automatic. And then, for example, you could add a specific product here if you are advertising individually. But it's enough for me to know, okay, this is my niche, in our case, test campaign. This campaign is automatic, so only ad groups are really added here. Here again is the structure. We are already talking about those which are automatically advertised. Start date, end date, you can set as you wish. Daily budget you can also set as you wish. I always set it high enough that it's sufficient. It actually cannot be reached, at least not when it's a very, very large campaign. That's how I always do it, because the daily budget doesn't matter to me. For some it does, it's something essential. From my perspective it's not necessary, so I ignore it. If you scroll up, then you also have here the bidding strategies. There are also different opinions on what is better, up and down, down only. I have also read about fixed bids, although that is probably only used in exceptional cases. In general, I would recommend starting with down only. Your bid that you set at least not exceeded, because that can often and quickly lead to high advertising expenses, especially when you are promoting events or very, very large keywords with a lot of search volume. That's why I would recommend down only here. Recommend. Of course, if you are already comfortable here, then perhaps you don't need this video at all, but then you can certainly use other bidding strategies here. Then I scroll all the way to the top. I know it's a bit confusing, but that's how I've adapted to it. And now I'll start here with the ad group. Below I set up the campaign, and inside the campaign is the ad group, and I'm starting right at the top with it. And here, for example, is my test campaign, and then I could still adopt something like that here if it has already sold, like for example my seller or my best seller. But for example, I only have designs 2025 and then it's automatic. And what I would also always include is the product, so I am still promoting the product, for example, to the team. T-shirt, could also be hoodie, long sleeve, sweatshirt, whatever. Then you're already at the ad groups, at the products. This is now the last point, and here at the very end. So you see, in just a few minutes we have gone from the very top of the portfolio all the way down to the product. Worked through. In my case, I can now take what I want. I have an Amazon test account here. I'll just take these two designs and copy the ASINs and paste them in and hope that they come. Yes, they come and appear. These are now, for example, my two products for my niche, for my test campaign. Then, as I said here, once automatic targeting, once manual targeting. For us it is now automatic, and then you can here set your bid as you wish. I would always recommend that you look at the individual ads and see what these cost, what Amazon recommends to you. I would generally say that close match should always be bid the highest, at least at the beginning when it comes to collecting data. Then there's loose match. I always start relatively low, let's say 20 cents, and substitutes is already correct. In this case, I always set it between loose and close match. It always depends on the listing, it depends on the design. Sometimes loose can be really good, sometimes it just burns money, sometimes substitute is very good, and sometimes only close match sells. It always depends on the niche. It's very hard to determine from the outside, and for that you simply need experience. This is just a general structure that I always use, and that works for me. You need compliments actually. Not at all, or rather it's not relevant for me. I always consider it relatively high, but usually nothing comes of it anyway, so I just let it run. Theoretically, I could just turn it off. It probably wouldn't change anything, and then you already have everything prepared. Then everything is ready. You have worked your way from the portfolio through the campaign, the ad group, and now to the products. Now you would press launch campaign. I hadn't configured my payment settings, so I can't press launch here, but I think I can press draft. I honestly don't even know where it will show up because I normally never do this. But yes, exactly, that's how you set up a campaign structurally. I have to check for myself now when I go to the campaign manager and to portfolios. Does this draft appear here now? Okay, it doesn't appear here, but normally you would have your automatic campaign number one here, and I would do the second one the same way. So again, create a campaign, again sponsored products, and again start at the bottom, but this time with 2, and that would be my test campaign manually, for example. And then I already have 2 campaigns in this portfolio, one with automatic campaigns and now one with manual campaigns. And I set the budget again so that it will probably not be exceeded. And here it's important to select, we want a manual campaign. You need to be careful with these settings here. If you switch between automatic and manual here, then these change again. Therefore always choose between automatic and manual first, and then you can say down only here, for example, and it will be applied exactly like that. This here is already a suggestion from Amazon. I usually delete that, but we start again at the top with the ad group, and it is exactly the same again. This is, for example, my test campaign designs 2025, but of course in this case it is then manually. And again the t-shirt, and then the process is exactly the same. And once you've done it a few times, you can repeat it by heart, just like I'm doing here in this video. So add your campaigns here, and then we have already selected manual targeting. And then again, very interesting, do you want to target keywords now, or do you want to target products like rivals, so to speak? It depends. My observation is that both can be successful. With keywords you often have more control because you can really specify the keyword precisely. Also again, with broad, with exact, or also with loose match, product targeting can also work, but here it's often the case that just a few cents make the difference between burning money or having a very successful campaign. Again, I would recommend product targeting. Works best when you already have experience with it. With the niche, with advertising in general, then it works. I would consider keyword targeting as more beginner friendly. So it's called keyword targeting, and I would go to enter list, and then you can here just specify your keyword. For us, for example, it would be test, just as an example, and then you can simply add this keyword and you will see what Amazon suggests. This can end up being $1 or $2 as Amazon suggests. I would never do, no matter the niche, even if they are as huge as Halloween or St. Patrick's Day. always make sure to keep your bids within a certain corridor. There are also campaigns and products that sell with $1 bids, good and even profitable. They exist, but generally, especially when promoting multiple designs, that can't really work. From my experience too, of course there is probably this exception, but from my experience too, you should always keep them in a range. Now, I said we will talk about this in the next video, but here is this important tip. So I would now say, if there is a very large keyboard, has a lot of search volume, then you can also set 0.45 or 0.50 for broad, for example, or for exact match. With phrase, I would go down a bit again, for example, to 0.45 or to 0, but here, just as an example. And then I would have also set up my manual campaign specifically for keywords. Like I said, you can also do it for products if you want. And then I would click on launch campaign again in my case. And then I simply created my structure. As I said, I don't have them live now, so you don't see it in the dashboard, but you would go to portfolios here, you would go to test portfolio that we just created, and you would now have two campaigns, automatic campaigns and manual campaigns. You can organize these with your individual ad groups, and with this overview of the portfolios, you are much better off than if you just manage individual campaigns. You have to think about what a portfolio is, but for us that's already two campaigns. If you then do it for products manual, then it would already be 3 campaigns, and in these 3 campaigns you can theoretically create very many ad groups, so there could easily be 15 or 20 ad groups in there. If you don't somehow condense and organize it, for example, through portfolios, then it becomes very confusing. What you can always do, of course, is go to single country, and then you have an overview of the individual campaigns, and then you can, for example, by the spend, so you can filter by how much you have spent, or for example by the orders that have come in, which can of course give you an overview. I would also use that, but for the overall big picture, so you can generally look at it and see, okay, this campaign is running like this niche is running like that. Always work with portfolios, because otherwise you can no longer keep track when you have hundreds of campaigns. It's also about, for example, campaigns that might have been successful at one point, then you set the bid a bit too low and suddenly they're not running anymore. That you notice them, for example, in the portfolio, which is the ad spend. 0 is or near 0 or much lower than before. That's what this is all about. Work with portfolios, because that way you have an overview on them, and then with campaigns, with ad groups, and within them the products. I would always advertise per product, and I would also always separate between automatic and manual campaigns. And if you work with this structure, then you have pretty much optimized everything when it comes to overview and structuring. This is our view how an Amazon advertising account should be structured, so you can be successful also in the future. If you have now any questions about it, simply write it down in the comments. Also leave a like if this video helped you, and of course also subscribe so you don't miss any videos, advertising videos in the future. I see you next time. Till then, have a nice time.